Welcome, guys. This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James, and this is your latest Rangers news, guys. Ahead of obviously what is going to be another very stressful make or break weekend for the club going into the game against St Mirren on Sunday. So, look, our record against St Mirren last season was pretty appalling. We won only one of 4 games against them last year. It was genuinely dreadful, including that heartbreaking last few-minute defeat at their ground previously. So, look, it's not the best of records we go there with, but we're going to look at what Russell Martin has been saying. Some comments that I think genuinely show that he has lost the plot a little bit with what he said. I just want to address a couple of things that came up to me on comments recently. I had a comment from a former channel member, a guy called Pete Rennie, who said to me that my opinion was nowhere near as valid as his, and he didn't like the negativity because of the channel at this moment in time. So I want to address that a couple of things. Apparently his opinion was more valid than mine because he goes to games and I don't. So apparently if you don't attend matches, you're not a real fan. You don't have any right to an opinion. Your opinion does not count anywhere near as much as someone who goes to games. I mean, I've honestly, this argument about because you don't go to games, you're not a fan, is the biggest load of fucking crap I have ever heard in my entire life. And people who say this are just fucking kids. They're children. They've got immature minds and immature arguments. Let's first of all get one thing straight. Ibrox does not hold over 1 million people. You have a limited number of tickets you can get for a match day anyway. Once you take out obviously season ticket holders, there's very few tickets anyway. So getting hold of a ticket to go to Ibrox is nigh on impossible, or very, very tricky to do indeed. If you consider that our stadium has a capacity of 51,587 to be precise. So that therefore means there are only realistically anywhere on a given match day 51,000 Rangers fans. The rest of you are not real fans if you don't attend games. So please, if you watch the channel and you are a Rangers fan, please know that if you don't go to games, you are not a real Rangers fan, according to this moron. Also, I think it fails to take into account other situations like people's work-life balance, people's mental health, people's issues like that. So, for example, I work a lot of Saturdays because I work in retail. I also suffer from chronic anxiety, so I don't do well in big crowds of people. In fact, I really struggle, and I'm known to have panic attacks in big crowds of people. So, yeah, obviously not a real fan, mate. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to say to him is I want to say to anyone who comes up with this argument of you're not a real fan unless you go to games, before you open your mouth, think, because you let yourself look like a fucking dickhead. Anyway, let's get back to the game coming up on Sunday. Russell Martin has been speaking to the fans. Now, one of the things you get criticised for has been negative, but you watch Club At, you watch Rangers Rabble. No one realistically is finding a lot of very positive things to say about the club at this moment in time. What is going well at this club at this moment in time? Because certainly the team are playing very poorly. The management is pretty poor. And it's ridiculous to state that you should sit here and say, oh, everything's great, Russell Martin's fantastic, we're building this, we're doing. It is misrepresenting the truth. It's effectively you're being Keir Starmer. You're talking a load of shit every time you open your mouth. You're being John Swinney, opening every time you open your mouth, a load of crap comes out. Let's deal with reality of the situation here, people. Things are not good at the club at this moment in time, and I'll be honest, I think we're in a battle to finish 3rd or 4th. I think the 2 Edinburgh sides have equally as much chance of finishing 2nd as we do this season to Celtic. I really genuinely think that domestically we are miles behind them, and domestically we are in a battle with Hearts and Hibs for that 2nd place, which is shocking considering the size and the status of our club. But Russell Martin was speaking about obviously all the criticism and the noise around the club at this moment in time. I've got to say, what he said was bizarre. Genuinely bizarre. This was his comment. He says, the noise is something I just can't control, which is true. You can't. Any Rangers manager, even Walter Smith, Graham Souness, you come in for criticism, there's things said about you, that you just cannot control. You can't. That's a fact. Fans will have their opinions, fans will have their voice, fans will boo. And I think anybody who says, you shouldn't be booing the team, well, I'm sorry, every fan has the right to express their opinion, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like the fact they boo, then Oh well, never mind. Get over it. Grow up. The only way you can control it is by winning football matches, and there is still some people who aren't happy that I've got long hair, a centre parting, and that I can't wear a shirt and tie because I'm too sweaty on the sidelines. I mean, I've got to say genuinely that if he thinks that the sole reason that we are unhappy with his style of management is because he has a centre parting, has long hair, and he doesn't wear a shirt and tie, he genuinely has lost the plot. I mean, the reason, Russell, that we're not happy is because the football is boring. The football is dire. It is turgid. It is not winning football. The style is garbage. The way we play is disgraceful. You are drawing games that you realistically should be winning. You are losing games in a weak fashion. The players don't look invested. The players don't look like they know what they're doing. The players look lost most of the time. So to say that there's people who don't like it and are not happy because you've got long hair and a centre parting, and you don't wear a shirt and tie on the sidelines, I think he's genuinely just plain stupid. I mean, the guy is just absolutely moronic if he thinks this is a genuine reason why fans don't want him as Rangers manager. Fans wouldn't care less if he stood there in a Borat bikini with hair in a man bun and some hair down to his arse if we were winning every single game. I mean, genuinely, if you genuinely think that, you are clearly a very stupid person. Look, yeah, I've heard some fans sounding off about the fact that he doesn't wear a club shirt and club tie on the sidelines at game time. And personally, I think that's a daft attitude to have. I mean, like I said, this is 2025, not 1925. And, if you look at the vast majority of top managers around the world at this moment in time, very, very few of them wear a shirt and tie. Arne Slot, no shirt and tie. Jurgen Klopp, no shirt and tie. Mikel Arteta, no shirt and tie. Pep Guardiola, no shirt and tie. Enzo Maresca, no shirt and tie. You go. The list is massive. You can go keep on going down that list. Luis Enrique, no shirt and tie. So I don't think what you wear on the sideline influences how you perform as a manager. And I don't think that if Russell Martin turned up in a shirt and tie for the rest of the season, it would change our results anymore. That the players would look over and go, oh, look, he's wearing a shirt and tie. I'm going to start playing properly now and following his instructions. I don't think that's the case in the slightest. In fact, I just found that comment absolutely laughable. It actually made me genuinely chuckle. He then went on to say, so you're never going to please anyone regardless. Even if you win loads of trophies here, which is the plan, I'm pretty sure there will still be skeptics. Again, yes, there may be a small minority, but again, I think that is vastly underestimating the fan base and what the fan base want, from the team. That's the plan, is to win lots of trophies. Yeah, it's not going to happen under your management, is it, Russell? Not with the way we play football. So again, I think, that might be the plan, Russell, but that was the plan for the last few managers, and it didn't happen, did it? So that's not my focus. Every day I just want to be as good as I can for the players and bring as much energy as I possibly can. Well, what you're doing at the moment isn't working, and perhaps you need to review what you're doing and how you do it. Because I'll be honest with you, you go back to his time at Swansea, his time at Southampton, the same thing has been levelled at him the whole way through his management career, right from MK Dons to Swansea to Southampton and now to Rangers. And that's that he has no plan B. He is tactically inflexible. He doesn't have any other way of playing. He has no in-game management skills. He just is not up to what the job is. He's kind of like a B-Tech Mark Warburton. He actually makes Mark Warburton look like Brian Clough in his management style. His plan B is to do plan A but with different players and hope they do it better, which is not a plan B. A plan B is changing the shape, changing the formation, changing the tactics, changing the way you attack as well. So, look, I think it is a situation that we have to look at and we have to address, certainly. And I genuinely don't think this man is up to the job. I genuinely do not see any, positive way of playing. I do not see any positive style. I just genuinely don't see anything at the moment. And yes, I know it's early days and we talk about, gelling time, playing time, whatever. But you've got to look at progress. And is there progress there? Have you seen a team improve game on game on game? Now, that's what you want to see. Even if it's not perfect, you need to see signs of improvement, signs of moving in the right direction. And certainly since he came in, there's been no sign of improvement. There has been no forward motion with the team. In fact, the team looks worse now than it did on the first day. And that's the sign of a bad football coach. In terms of going into that game at the weekend, he talked about the availability. He talked about the support from the leadership group. I think, the leadership group personally within the squad is weak. Obviously, Jack Butland, is a decent goalkeeper. John Suter is not a captain. He's too quiet to be a leader. Kieran Dowell is just a fucking pathetic waste of space who I genuinely will never see what that man sees anymore. Anyone. I mean, Kieran Dowell is not even a footballer. I mean, if Kieran Dowell can play professional football, I can. At 47, I'm fat, I'm unfit, I'm overweight, I get out of breath running. I think I could be a better player than Kieran Dowell. I think I am a better player than Kieran Dowell. I don't think it's even debatable. I think you could probably get 11 lads out of the Broom Loan who are better than Kieran Dowell. He talked also about the fact that Hamza, he said, has had 5 or 6 training sessions, so he's likely not fit to start yet. He won't be far off, but he's not quite ready to start yet. Again, I don't genuinely get this logic that a lot of managers come out with, particularly Rangers managers, that because a player isn't fit to start yet. Well, if he's on the bench, then he's fit to play. So if he's on the bench, he's fit to start. Because what happens if the striker goes down after 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 2 minutes? You say, oh shit, I can't put him on because he's not fit to start. So he couldn't play 88 minutes or 87 minutes or 85 minutes. So again, I just find this argument ridiculous. Hamza showed, whenever he's come on, more than Dessers did when he was playing, more than Danilo did. Hamza is by far the best striker at the club, technically, skillfully, ability-wise, and just all round. If you look at the guy's ability, the guy's talent is quite clear to see. Hence why he's had bids for Premier League, from big Premier League teams, from French teams that have come in from him, from European sides that are looking at him as a player. So, I think this argument that he isn't fit to play or start is ridiculous, because if you're on the bench, you're fit enough to start. You can play 60, 70 minutes still. I'm not saying he plays 90, but I think it's an absolutely ridiculous argument, especially when he went on to talk about the fact the team were in a good place, in terms of fitness. He talked about Cyril Dessers possibly being back for midweek. He's been working with the physio, so the injury is quite clearly not as bad as we first thought. It's an interesting one, guys, going into this game of the weekend. And like I said, it's not going to be easy. It will be tough because they are a tough opponent. They will be a tough opponent. Again, you listen to his press conference and you watch his press conference and it's the same old stuff. I've enjoyed this week. It's been good. The players been full of energy, blah, blah, blah. It's the same old bollocks, week in, week out. It's a bit like listening to Michael Beale again. In fact, he reminds me a lot of Michael Beale. He really does, with the way he goes about things. In other news, obviously, was the fact that Jose Cifuentes has left the club on a season-long loan to Toronto FC, apparently. So again, that's another non-permanent. We again move Cifuentes on. It is on loan. Hopefully Toronto sees something in him and will purchase him at the end of this season. I mean, certainly for Sifu, nothing has worked out. He certainly wasn't the player that Michael Beale talked of when he signed him, as being this game changer, this box-to-box player who would change everything. So, look, that's good news for me that he's got found a new club and that we're clearing some of the deadwood. And that was certainly something that Russell Martin talked about in his presser. He talked about the fact that towards the end of the window, as Parag Marathe had already said, that signings will come in, signings will go out. Players will leave still, and it's quite clear that players will leave. I think there's a number of players who do need to leave. I think there's a lot of deadwood at this club. I think, if we could get rid of James Tavernier in this window, I think that would be a massive step forward for the club. I think it would really help the whole sort of ethos of the club would move a massive step forward if we got rid of that serial loser from our team. Other news: Ridvan apparently is on the verge of joining Besiktas. Some people are reporting that it is done and dusted. Apparently, it is not yet done and dusted, but it is pretty clear that he will be returning to the club that he was signed from, Rangers. Apparently he will complete that move. Like I said, he's undergone a medical. It's just now a case of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and finalising that move as well. So obviously now this leaves us with only one left back at the club, who is a player on loan in Jayden Meghoma. Again, as I've stated previously, this is something I really do think we do need to address. A big concern of mine is 3/4 of our starting back four in the last game were all loan players, and loan players who we will not retain on a long-term basis. But yeah, it looks pretty much certain that Ridvan will be gone and will be moving on. Like I said, this leaves only Jayden Meghoma. And, the fact that Ben Davies apparently is also likely to leave on loan, not back to Birmingham, but this time to Oxford United. Again, another loan. Again, I'd much rather see these guys leaving on a permanent basis. But the issue, of course, is you can only sell what people want to buy. And I think it should really just show some of the players have really not been up to it over the last few years. But, in terms of Ridvan, I'm sorry to see Ridvan go. The lad was a good footballer. It's just a shame he couldn't stay fit. I think if he'd had stayed fit, if he'd shown the ability to stay with it, I think he probably could have been a very, very good footballer, if I'm being honest with you, for the club. But look, things are what they are. We wish Ridvan all the best. He's been a cracking servant he's a cracking player when he has played. Like I said, I really like Ridvan. I think he's a good footballer. One of the top guys at the club, one of the best fullbacks in the club. But like I said, it hasn't worked out for him. I think the physicality of the Scottish game doesn't suit. The whole intensity of the Scottish game doesn't suit, and I think that's probably what's led to all the injuries that he's had. So obviously he moves on as well. So a number of players leaving on loan. The big problem, of course, will be if they all return at the end of this season, and we have to try and get rid of them again. But certainly good news that they're off the wage bill for now. I'm sure we'll be paying some percentage of the wage, but certainly cutting the wage bill down to obviously enable us to bring in some other players will be positive. But as Russell Martin said, there are players who will arrive and players who will leave. He spoke, I think, of Connor Cody as well at one point, where he mentioned a player with great leadership skills who we tried to get in for a lot of the window but missed out on. So I think it was a clue that we were looking at bringing in Connor Cody. I still think centre-back is somewhere we need to address. I think we're very short in that centre-back area. John Suter is out of contract at the end of this season. Giga is on loan and unlikely to sign, given the fact he cost £10 million. So we'll only have Manny Fernandez, from this season's centre-backs. Yes, I know Nsiala, Davis, etc., but they don't appear to have a future at the club. So I do think that is a position we need to address. I think we need another right-back, because the two we've got at the moment, James Tavernier and Max Aarons, are just fucking useless. We've got Jayden Meghoma, but I think we need a backup to Jayden Meghoma. I think the midfield's pretty sorted, to be honest with you. If Lyle Cameron gets more minutes, I think Lyle's a cracking player, needs more minutes for definite. I think we need another winger. I think we need another striker, definitely bringing in before the window closes. But, those links up to Dor Turgeman appear to have gone quiet now. So where do we go from that? We do need a striker, I believe, before this window closes. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you on the next one.